Last time on the Wizard Cast.
And we're back. How long have we been?
About 8 years, more or less.
8 years? What's the date? The last episode was September 2020, and according to my watch, that's been only 4 months.
I did say more or less.
Well, okay, but that's a pretty big discrepancy. Actually, closer to a lie, really, if you think about it.
Lies are just facts that haven't been repeated enough yet. And if you don't believe that, you soon will, because lies are just facts that haven't been repeated enough yet.
And now the conclusion of the Wizard Cast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create Wizardcast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome to the Wizardcast.
Well, Brian, we haven't had an episode in quite a long while, and there was just a big Salesforce release. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I don't know, Mark. What does a steam-powered giraffe even eat?
You know, you really need to use some jokes that aren't from Animaniacs, Brian. I'm not sure we've actually had one yet this episode.
Boingy, 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 boingy.
No. Okay, it's time once again to go through all the release notes. Now, let's see. Hang on. This script doesn't look thick enough to cover all the release notes, Brian. There should be a lot more.
Well, that's because it's only the odd number pages.
Why?
Because I can't even.
Hey, that joke wasn't from Animaniacs. Good boy, Brian. Here's a Brian snack. So the release notes are 632 pages.
I bought a few handguns from a T-Rex the other day.
What?
Yeah, he's my small arms dealer.
Right. Yep. Okay, here's another Brian snack. As I was saying...
Like a man in orthopedic footwear, I stand corrected.
Brian, no. Down.
Arf.
For the podcast audience, I'm glaring at him right now. The release notes are 632 pages and cover multiple industry-focused and paid add-ons. Obviously, we can't cover all of that in one episode, so we're just going to do the things that, are kind of going to impact the most people. We always, do this. This is standard procedure, but we'll try to hit the things that are, of course, the biggest import, and of course,
Flow.
Exactly. We got to hit flow in depth because that's what we do.
That wasn't planned in the script, so that's why I sounded unsure.
It really has been a while, Brian, because before you would have picked up on that without being quite so uncertain.
I know.
You're getting rusty, Brian. Come on.
I am, especially because we didn't really plan this out. What you consider the important stuff. So this may actually just be... what parts of the release notes did Brian and Mark actually read?
Well, that's true, but we did as much planning as we always ever do. So
that's true. That is very true.
Okay, so we're just going to kind of go at this, and it's going to be a little chaotic as usual. The first thing to note is that release notes are no longer just on their own site.
There aren't.
They're actually now found in the Salesforce Help Docs portal.
Oh, you mean that big question mark thing that you see in the upper right-hand corner?
Exactly. So you don't have to, pull up a bookmark every single time. You can actually get there straight from your actual Salesforce.
That's going to
org.
save me at least 3 Google searches a year.
Yeah, how else are you going to get to it? Think about that. Think about how much time you're saving over time by saving those 3 Google searches. That's easily, 3 minutes over the course of your life? That's significant.
I could eat so many Kwongy snacks.
Another thing that we wanted to point out specifically is that they've actually been making some changes in the system and in the docs, trying to do it everywhere we can. They're now trying to use more inclusive terms. So if there are terms that are maybe not sensitive to our modern times, like blacklist and whitelist. Those are now being replaced throughout the system. It's been going for a while now, but it's a big initiative. It takes a lot of time and effort, and they're always listening to more input. There's a list of terms they're still looking at. So, that's a big thing. And
there's changes to dynamic forms. So, for those of you who have maybe not been keeping up with the release notes stuff, dynamic forms is this new way where your Lightning pages essentially start becoming like the pages, where you can, at a field level, say, display or show those based off of some sort of criteria, just like you can do with a Lightning component. But it's not, I wouldn't say that it's even fully out enough to be widely used by everyone.
No, probably not.
Right, because I don't believe it's available in mobile even yet, right?
It's not even available on some standard objects,
right?
Yet. Because they're having to roll it out over time. Because for those standard objects, it's a much larger effort to get them done.
Right. So a lot of the things that are coming are all about trying to make it to the point where they are generally available and all nice and cleanish and so forth. And part of that is following up with the duplicates. So we all have that duplicate check that you can build in Salesforce with matching rules and duplicate rules. And now if you have dynamic forms enabled on a page, it'll actually do it.
And it will do it before you hit save. That's I think the cool part. Was that something that existed before? Where it would actually check for duplicates before you hit the save? I thought it was always after you hit save, then it's like, oh, hang on.
Well, you had to have the rules all built out and everything like that, and then it will say, hey, there looks like there's a duplicate in here. Do you mean one of these things?
Gotcha. So yeah, just bringing parity. That's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of help stuff from earlier, there's now more characters available for field level help.
Yay!
Up to 510. I thought that was interesting. They went to 255 to 510.
I mean, I don't know why exactly that is. There's got to be a reason for that. I mean, wait, hang on. That's exactly double the number.
That checks out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we're not all, idiots here on the Wizardcast. But yeah, that's actually really significant, not just for users, but for partners.
That implies there's some idiots on the podcast.
And not just for users, but for partners too, because people are developing apps, right? And they have to put in the field help for the custom fields they make. And
there's only 2 people on this podcast.
I'm not sure what your point is.
Yeah. Anyways,
but in other words, you got a lot more space to put in help for users. That's pretty awesome.
A really good thing. Yes. Some of you may have remembered that there was a change coming to email to case. And, well, it's been extended. That change has now been pushed out.
What was the change?
To Winter 22. It had to do with, like, email to case and, that ref code that you can put, like, in the subject and so forth in order to tie things back.
Sure.
Yeah, that changed. I can't remember the specific change off the top of my head. But I have all the way to Winter 22 to figure it out. But, I mean, that's the thing. If you look, that's the one funky thing in the release notes. It literally just says, hey, there's a new enforcement deadline for the Winter 21 email to case updates. That just gives it to Winter 22. It doesn't provide a reference to what that change was.
Right, but you can go look it up. It's the threading behavior you were talking
about,
the ref ID. So yeah, it's at least you got more time to figure it out,
which is good.
Something else more on the support side of things, for knowledge. This is probably relatively minor, but I know if you've got people who are using knowledge internally, this was always a thing. If you favorited a knowledge article, it would actually point to the current version it would point to the version that the article was when you hit favorite.
So when I updated the article, no one was actually looking at it because they were going to the favorite.
They were always going to the favorite old version. So now they will point to the latest version.
That was my favorite version. I just want to go back to it now.
I mean, it's the thing. There's
a
use case for that, but no.
This is much better.
This is much better. There weren't a lot of other changes that we were going to specifically cover for support this go around because most of them were product specific. Bots, Einstein, field service, voice. That's where a lot of the support work seemed to go this round.
And if you are interested, check out the release notes. But, one of the things that I think is interesting is what's becoming more available on mobile. We kind of talked about how dynamic forms isn't there yet, but they just made it so you can adjust your collaborative forecast on your mobile device.
Hold on a sec. Where did the mobile? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's under sales. It's sales specific. Yeah, the organization of this release notes gave me a lot of head scratching. There was a lot of, like, if you go through the when this feature comes out type of thing, there's huge swaths that are all industry specific before you get down to stuff that's more general.
Well, and I'll tell you a lot of the reason for that. It's going to be attached to whoever did the development. So if this was something that was done by the sales team, it's going to go in the sales area. If the work was done by the mobile team, it's going to go in the mobile area. That's usually how these things get organized.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot more broadly than that. Like, because you'll go through and say, hey, here's information about, like, service. We get the service, and suddenly it goes through industries. And then you go all the way past the industries, and all the Tableau stuff and all that other stuff, and then you get down to mobile. So it's like there's all these things that are really industry specific that are listed higher up in the release note overview than other things. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, this is good to talk about on the show a little bit. The idea is that you're going to have certain things that are done by a core team versus something that's done by a features team, right? There's always going to be a team that's focused on, like, the back end of mobile, right? Or working on foundation or extensibility, things that are actually going to affect not just a single platform. And then you're probably going to have a wholly separate team actually working on the ways those manifest. And if it's something that's specific to industries, then it's probably going to be the industries team working on it. So some things that may seem mobile, because they're not being worked on by the actual mobile engine teams, they're going to be in with the industries.
Yeah, you're missing what I'm trying to say. So, like, if you look at the release notes, how it's organized, it would go through and say, hey, here's some sales stuff, here's some service stuff, right? Which you can kind of say are quote-unquote core. Then it goes, here's industries, which have, completely different setup than what you would consider core. And then it goes from industries to analytics, and then from analytics to commerce, which is something,
order of things.
Yeah, which is something separate. It's like,
I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Is like, it was weird because I was having to scroll and skip through tons of stuff to find out what you would consider kind of like core platform, because it was all disjointed from each other.
Yeah, now that I can't speak to.
Yeah.
But that is interesting. Forecasts on mobile. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. This one. I have been wanting this for years.
Being able to convert leads to a person account through the
No. Look up to opportunity products.
Oh, which is wonderful.
Or no, I'm sorry. Wait, which is?
No, that's right. It's opportunity line items, opportunity products. Yeah.
Yeah. Look up the opportunity line items. Yeah, exactly. So this was something that caused so much headache, and I can, for me as an admin, and I can understand why it'd be a big, huge headache for Salesforce, why it would take them so long to do this, because of the way the database was structured in the first place. But oh my God, this is going to open up so many things.
Yeah. Create your own product schedules other than opportunity schedules.
Right. And other things that are not schedules, but kind of like schedules.
Or linking a custom object that represents contract line items to the sales line item.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that's not like an order or a, oh God, what is the other thing that you could, not an invoice, a quote.
Yeah. Anything
that you want to do that's like a quote but not a quote, because quote has all sorts of restrictions and issues and things like that. And it's maybe something to do with billing systems. You want to tie things together for that. Yeah, this is going to blow things wide open for a lot of people.
And here I thought you were excited about being able to convert leads to person accounts and business accounts using,
the API.
The API.
But I don't use the API.
The Apex convert option.
I know, but that's Apex.
But now you can do it.
But now we can do it. Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a thing. What else can we do?
Well, now, you remember how I was whining to you about Lightning email templates and classic email templates and how I'm having to do both? Because, Well, now, those Lightning email templates can be referenced in automation. So if you've been
Like
still
what?
creating classic email templates in order to be able to using like an email alert to send it on email, you can now use a Lightning email template instead.
Yay!
Workflow even. It
Yep.
works for our workflow. That's fantastic.
It even says it works for approval processes.
I know.
Dang.
And more. And more.
And more. Yeah. So apparently that's happening. This is a beta. I thought it was interesting. Brian, I moved this one up. I didn't actually realize that you had it down below in the beta section. I figured we only have 2 betas, so I'm just going to leave it there.
No, that's fine.
This is a beta, but it's definitely interesting, and it's the ability to track accounts as campaign members.
Yeah, the timing of this was really interesting because we have a customer that has been wanting to tie sales to campaigns, but based on the account that did something. So, like, if you attended a webinar as a Salesforce employee, any sales that came through for Salesforce wanted to be tied to the campaign, and you had to do all these weird rigmarole things to do it, because you couldn't explicitly tie the account to the campaign. But the beta allows you to essentially create a campaign member, and instead of saying it's a lead contact, you can also do account.
Nice. Again, it's one of those things. It's like I'm sure people have been wanting to do it for ages, and it's just going to open up a lot of possibilities.
What's interesting to me is if you read kind of like the nomenclature of how they changed this, it makes it sound like they're making that lead contact into more of a generic field. So I wonder if this is potentially an indicator that there may be options in the future to add other objects other than account lead and contact.
That's interesting. That could be very interesting.
We'll see.
We'll just have to see. Moving on to reports. We've got some other interesting stuff coming out of reports. Some relatively big stuff. First off, when you're actually making a report, now you can select and drag multiple fields at once.
Thank you. Oh, there's been plenty of times where if I'm having to create a lot of reports, I've been going back to the classic report builder because it's been so slow using the Lightning report builder, even though it has some really nice features that isn't available in classic. Now, if you are going to be adding multiple fields, you actually have to expand a panel that's collapsed by default. And if you look to the left of where you see like the groups and the columns and so forth, there's a little thing that you can click and it'll expand. It'll give you the list of fields grouped by object folder, just like it would show up in the report type builder. And you can essentially control click down and drag over multiple fields at once.
Very nice. Gonna make things a lot speedier. Yeah.
Well, this is all about dashboard filters. Specifically being able to filter a dashboard based on a URL parameter. And this is something we've been able to do with reports in Classic for ages. And then fairly recently in Lightning, now we can use a URL that will filter the dashboard based on something you pass over in the URL parameter. So if you had a huge dashboard that was covering maybe a whole bunch of information about services and cases and sales on, say, an account, instead of having to create multiple accounts, you could create a link that they click to go to the dashboard and have it filtered to the account. That's
pretty nuts. Has this been in dashboards before for Classic? I don't think it was.
Dashboard filters have been, but I don't think you could pass...
No, but auto setting, yeah, that's what I mean, passing in the URL.
I don't think the URL parameter was working.
So what this is, maybe you've seen this before and you're just not sure what the term is. This is where previously people have been able to make reports that were linked to, and then it has in the URL FV0 equals, and then maybe something, and FV1 equals. So you're basically passing in values into the filters. So you have to have a dashboard that already has filters on it. Correct. They already have to be defined, but then FV0 is always the first one. So if your first filter was a stage of closed, or just a stage, you could say FV0 equals closed, and anytime anybody clicks that link to go to the dashboard, that would automatically set that filter to closed, so they don't have to do it themselves. this is I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's going to save a lot of people having to create a lot of dashboards.
So this is something that I know is going to save people a lot of consternation, a lot of trouble. In the past, people have had the option to export a report as XLS or CSV, but not, the actual current Excel format of XLSX. Well, that is now something you can do.
Yeah, it only took us 12 years. 12 years! Changed format 12 years ago.
That's about as long as we released the last podcast episode.
More or less.
More or less. So that's a thing. Now moving on to, it's not Community Cloud, is it?
It's Experience Cloud.
I will say nothing more on this subject, and I'm just going to not talk about it.
As a non-Salesforce employee, it is my personal opinion that I've been having a bad experience with this name brand change.
Okay. Well, I've heard you, and I have taken on your feedback, even though I have nothing to do with this product whatsoever. And I'm just going to smile and nod, but maybe not for the reason that people normally smile and nod for, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
I really don't understand the change, personally, simply because community makes a lot more sense considering...
I know exactly why. And I don't know if I can talk about it, but it's a reason.
None of that
and
is
it's
going
not
to be in the podcast.
It's No, I think we can leave this in.
You want to leave in that you know something, but you can't share something?
Employees know things they can't share. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Former employees no less. So anyways, on this new Experience Cloud.
Let's put it this way. There is a reason that it's not necessarily a bad one. And I get why. I just don't like it. But that's me. That's my personal opinion. Moving on. The actual changes.
Yeah. The reason why we're talking about they're really kind of all the same. And that's basically for people who have unauthorized users. So those are people using sites.
Yeah.
Using a community where people do not have to log in. You use what's called a guest user. And there was
unauthenticated?
Unauthenticated, same thing. Yeah, it's guest. Yeah. I mean, it's called the guest profile and all that other stuff. But the point is there's a bunch of changes with permissioning. And this was alluded to in previous releases, but the big thing is it's now forced upon you, where the external guest permission will no longer have view all, modify all, edit, or delete permissions on the external guest profile. So if you're using something where you are expecting your guest users to be able to view something, edit something, or delete something, depending upon what you're doing, it may no longer work.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm a little bit torn on this because this is really, 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 really good for security purposes. But on the other hand, it's also sometimes people needed to see a list of everything as an unauthenticated user, right? Like it's a relatively small list of cases, but that is a thing. So I don't know. Maybe there's a way to get around it. I don't know enough about Experience Cloud to be able to form an opinion.
We're so going to get in trouble.
Something else that is also there, the guest user profiles had a bunch of permissions that didn't actually do anything. They were permissions that were very useful for non-guest users.
Yes.
And on non-guest user profiles, but on guest user profiles, when you check them on, they didn't do anything. So now they've just been outright removed from that view when you're looking at it.
They can no longer approve feed posts and comments.
They couldn't before, but I want to make this clear. These things they've never been able to do. There is no actual change apart from removing the things that you couldn't do anyway from your view. Do you understand?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, so basically it's just cleaning up the profile of extraneous stuff.
There were a bunch of checkboxes that could be checked, but for guest users, they did nothing. Okay. Nothing. Now, they're just not there. So that they can continue to do nothing without being confusing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, you aren't having things taken away. Everything is fine. Speaking of other external profiles, there are existing profiles that get shipped with Salesforce. They're designed for guest users they no longer work. I mean, they're there, but now any user that has it assigned to them, they won't be able to log in. And that is there for security. They're trying to get people to get off of using the standards, to make duplicates and make changes to the duplicates.
Unless you're MP.
Say what?
Professional edition, you get a max of 2 profiles.
Oh boy. Well, you know what? I can't speak to that, but I don't think Professional Edition is going to have a lot of Experience Cloud attached to it. So
no, probably not.
Probably not.
But I mean, these are things. The reason I bring it up is because there are specific profiles. They're not just standard profiles, because that covers a lot of things. These are things
true,
community related, accessing the ideas on the portal, partner related. Yeah, things like that. We're not talking about marketing user.
No.
Moving
on.
Dynamic actions.
Dynamic. How dynamic are they?
More dynamic than they were in the previous release. So dynamic actions are kind of like dynamic forms, but instead of saying, hey, I want this field to show up or disappear based on criteria, you can do that with your actions on the page. It is still not full GA for everything. It is generally available for mobile, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's generally available for custom objects and now for account, case, contact, lead, and opportunity, but for desktop.
Yeah, so let's go over this one more time.
Yeah.
They're GA for custom objects on mobile.
Correct.
We're already GA for custom objects
on
desktop since the last release. They now are GA for account, case, contact, and lead and opportunity on desktop, but not on mobile.
Yeah. So if you look at dynamic actions as a feature as a whole, it's still beta.
Well,
it is
yeah,
not
they're beta.
Done
they're
yet.
Beta. Yeah.
Yes. So don't get confused when you say, hey, it's GA for this and GA for that. It's really all beta. They're just saying that we're done with doing this portion of the beta. I like dynamic actions, but until they're fully GA, I don't plan on using them in a production org unless I have a really strong reason to do so.
There's good. I haven't used them.
Well, I'll give you an example.
Give me an example.
So before they were GA for mobile and custom objects, if you turned them on a custom object, that means you needed to maintain the classic page layouts as well as a Lightning page layout in order to be able to control what buttons show up or not show up in your mobile devices as well as your desktop. So you can imagine that if you're in a situation with multiple record types and different profiles, this could get really confusing because you would have to remember, I do this here and that there, especially if you have more than one Lightning page where you're trying to do the same thing. It got convoluted. And I'm a big believer of trying to keep the maintenance as easy and simple as possible. And so if you're turning on a feature that is not fully GA yet and it causes more work, unless you have a dramatic business case why you need it now, in my opinion, you're better off waiting. Not that those genuine business cases don't exist. There are some that are absolutely imperative that you need it now to go forward, but I would avoid it until it's fully GA. Just because I don't know about you, but as an admin, I wouldn't want to try to remember, okay, I have to go here if it's mobile, and I have to go there if it's Lightning, and keep track of what all the criteria is, because your criteria is going to be potentially different depending upon desktop, depending on mobile, and how many Lightning pages you have, and so forth. Once it's available fully, custom and standard objects for both desktop and mobile, go at it. Go nuts. Keep good documentation.
Also, in the app builder space, we now have a tool to get information about Lightning page performance.
Which is good.
This is good. So you can actually load this up and see an actual set of statistics, charts that explain how well your specific Lightning page is performing. Again, pretty useful stuff.
But along with that is being able to get tips specifically for your mobile. So not just Lightning pages in general, but it gives you more tips about how this page may affect if you're looking at it through the mobile device.
That's the guidance area.
Yeah.
Right? That has to do with setting up in-app Wait, no.
No, this is guidance for the
This
app
is not
builder.
in-app guidance. This is guidance for App Builder.
It is in-app guidance because you're getting the guidance in the app, but it's not in-app
Well,
guidance as in the product.
The product. Yeah, it's not the in-app guidance product. This is what is provided to admins when they're in App Builder. You get more information. That's good. Something else. Mobile Home is in beta. And this is an actual homepage similar to what you have on desktop when you first load up Salesforce. But it's designed for the mobile interface instead. So you can actually have reports, calendar, show my tasks, things like that, and a dedicated homepage for mobile. Mm-hmm. Just like you would if they were logging in on desktop.
And if you're like me, who prefers to use Android over iOS, a lot of the features that were available only on iOS are now going to be available on Android, like the activity timeline.
Yay! That's definitely a thing. Definitely a thing.
It is.
Scrolling is now better on the app, and that's good. Smoother and better for assisted things like screen readers. So that's a lot helpful for people who have accessibility issues.
Mm-hmm. Mobile app for tablets.
Mobile app for tablet is now better. You have to request it, I believe, right?
Really?
Or is that something you had to do? No, previously you had to request it. Yeah, now you don't actually have to request it from Salesforce.
Salesforce mobile app quick start.
Yep, exactly. That's specifically for tablet. And then this is something else. I thought this was interesting. On my phone, I know I have things called widgets that I add to my desktop or to my what do you call it? It's not a desktop on a phone. Your screens. Where all your icons go. I don't know. I guess, but it's multiple screens, so I don't call. It's weird to call it home because it's multiple homes.
How many screens does your phone have? Because I just have one screen.
I've got 4.
You got one of those weird foldable ones?
No, it's I can shift between them.
Oh, pages.
Pages.
You use the word screen. I thought literally like the screen. Like if you say my screen broke, you don't refer to a page.
Look. I use words professionally as a job. Okay, I know what I say.
Yes,
with the words,
but only within your particular form of expertise.
I may have a blind spot. Anyway, no. So widgets are something you can have on screens. Pages. There we go. I'm getting it on your mobile device. And now there is actually a Salesforce widget you can add to your pages, add to your home, whatever it is, add to your freaking phone when you're not looking at an app, and see your most recent records and get to them easily. I think that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, I just don't know how to talk about it.
Well, Mark, I'm very sorry to say.
Yeah?
We will no longer ever be talking about Lightning Flow again.
No, we won't, except for this.
One time.
This right here. Yeah, this is it.
The now.
This is the last. And why is that, Brian?
Because Lightning Flow no longer exists.
Yep.
It's now just Salesforce Flow.
Yep. Okay. Give it to me.
How many different brandings have we had with Flow?
Get it out of your system. Let's go.
No, actually, I don't have a problem with the name.
Oh, well, according to what you wrote in the script, it looked like you had a problem with the name.
Yeah, because it's stupid rebranding. I mean, how many times has Flow been rebranded? I mean, Lightning Flow it's only been Lightning Flow officially for a couple years maybe at most?
Yeah. I'm not gonna go so far as to say that. Well, see, how do I want to put this? I'm not gonna go so far as to say that rebrands are a good thing. They're a necessary. I don't want to say necessary evil because it's not evil. It's just, and it's definitely not going away. How many times have we seen within the Salesforce ecosystem everything gets rebranded? Everything, right? The only things that haven't been rebranded are the standard objects. Everything else has at some point or another. And that I'm not going to say, well, it's inevitable, so don't complain about it, because it still is frustrating. It's still annoying.
I look at it this way. If it provides clarity, like if the brand change makes it more clear.
Right. And this is probably an SEO. It's a differentiation between Microsoft Flow.
Well, I also say, like Lightning Flow kind of makes it sound like it's only available in Lightning, and it's not.
Right.
Depending on what you consider Lightning is now, considering that brand has been reused all over the place too.
It's we should be happy that it's not Einstein Flow.
Yet.
As far as I know. Yeah, rebrands are a thing. Yes, they're annoying. Unfortunately, they're just not going anywhere.
Yeah. So the good news about this section, though, is I didn't have to read this because Mark wrote it all.
Well,
right?
I did not, actually, because there are 5 other people on my team.
No, you do everything. Don't destroy my illusion.
Now, that being said, I did write this first one.
About Lightning Flow being Salesforce Flow?
No, not that one. No,
well, that is the first
I did write
one.
that one, too.
You wrote that one, too?
I did write that one, too.
Well, I'm sorry I called your thing stupid rebranding then.
Well, it's
But it is.
It's a fair call.
Yeah.
No, so the first one we're going to talk about is prior values. This
makes me so happy.
Yeah, I know, right? On certain types of flows, you can actually access the prior value of the record that triggered the flow. So this is specifically for record triggered flows, right?
Yes.
If it's not a record triggered flow, it's not going to work. And that doesn't mean Process Builder triggered it. It means the specific, like when you go into Flow Builder and you're going to make a flow for the first time, it asks you what type of flow and you have to select record triggered. Once you do that, then you can use this. You can actually get access to the prior values of the record that triggered it.
And it's so much easier because it used to be that the only way to do it is you do it, the trigger as a flow before flow trigger, and then you have to do a get on the record that just triggered it to get the values before it's saved. I mean, it was ridiculous. But now there's an actual thing as a global, what do you call it? Global variable? Global
variable, yeah.
Global variable called prior record. So just like the record.
Record prior. Yeah, record _ prior.
Record prior versus prior record. Record prior makes a lot more sense because prior record makes it sounds like that there was a past criminal intent.
Well, that, and he's the brother of Richard Pryor, so that was the only way it was going to make sense.
I know who Richard Pryor is. I still don't understand the joke, but that's okay. All right, I had to ask you this. Did you write this next one?
Let me see here. This one is running part of the record triggered flow after the triggering event. No, I did not write this one.
Because I, first off, like the feature. Secondly, I hated this title of it because I was like, what does that mean?
I may not keep this part in, but let's keep talking.
But it was, I thought it was, what does it mean? What did it mean? I thought once I got there, it made a lot of sense, and it's essentially the equivalent of doing scheduled actions in Process Builder, but in Flow now. So instead of having to have one path, which is always immediate, or using a path with a median and then a pause, you now can have a path where you have your immediate, and then you could have basically a scheduled action, do X after, this date or a number of hours before this date and so forth. Which is really nice.
A single flow to run things immediately and do schedule, just different based on the paths that you take.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things you have to consider. For example, obviously it will only work on record-triggered flows. But the other thing is you have to have a criteria, not just the object. So you can't have a record flow that just fires all the time. You have to have some sort of criteria in there, or you won't even see the add schedule path as an option. Now, that criteria can be something really stupid, like opportunity ID is not null.
Yeah.
But you still have to have some sort of criterion. I think the rationale is kind of like that criterion section, the start, is the equivalent to a Process Builder diamond node. And so you're doing
I don't know. I can't speak to this at all.
I know because the other choice is you just have it fire off every time it fires, and then you use a decision element that controls the logic of what actions happen when. Right. But for this specific type of use case, if you're wanting to do something on a scheduled basis, that's taken away from you. You have to put the criteria directly in the start node.
Next up, now we can actually do rich text emails from your flow using the standard send mail action.
Yep. I usually don't use send emails in Flow, with the exception of sending emails to the admin for debugging purposes, like if there's an error.
I've done
but
that, yeah.
Otherwise, I find it a lot better to create an email alert and then use the email alert to send out, because that way that you can modify the contents of the email without having to modify the flow.
Well, and so the reason you would do this instead of that is because with the email alert, it is either a static person that has been assigned, or it has to be somebody that is assigned in a user lookup on that you can get to.
Right.
On the record. I believe it has to be on the record. For this, you don't have to do that. You can have other sort of formulaic criteria, algorithmic criteria where you're figuring out who to get it emailed to.
Well, any you could do, if you can get to an email address any way, shape, or form in the flow, you can use that to reference in the email action. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes you just can't. Sometimes it's going to be, in this case, it needs to go to this person, but if this is over $400, it needs to go to this person. Like those are things you can't necessarily get to.
Which is why I would use 2 email templates. And then
I suppose you could do that.
Let the flow say, based on this criteria, send it out.
Either way.
There are plenty of use cases where you would want to. I would say 9 out of 10 for most of the stuff I do, I can get away with just an email alert.
It does say we recommend put your email body in a text template. I wanted to highlight that.
It's important.
Yeah, that's really the only way you're going to be able to do this.
Have you ever tried to do rich text in the free text area of the assignment?
The single line?
Yeah, no, it's
No.
impossible to do it. No. Text template, your friend. One thing I do think was interesting is you still have to provide a plain text body because it's a required
for
attribute on the action. Yes,
that's just an email standard.
Right.
That's an email standard. Rich text and standard
text template. It'll be just that if for some reason they got the plain text version, it would just be all HTML.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I messaged you on this before because I was doing a demo for my user group and I can't get this to work.
And I can't help you. I'm not your tech support, Brian.
I didn't say you were.
This
is changing how screen components act when a user revisits it. So if you were using the non-auto layout method, you could have a screen and then a decision element and an assignment, and then you could go back to the same screen. And it used to be that whatever the user previously had set in that screen would still be there. So if I had a number field, I would have, and I type in 123, I would come back to it, and my 123 would still be in the number field.
Right.
But now there's an option here to control what happens when the user goes back to that screen. And it's just a rail button that says either use the values from the last time the user was there or essentially refresh it.
So it goes back to either blank or default values or whatever it was.
Right.
For somebody who visited the first time.
Right. But this only is applicable to Lightning components. So, for example, my number example doesn't apply here. This is something for like the toggle, which I couldn't get it to work. It would, but I probably was doing something wrong. It would just always reset the toggle.
Well, sorry that I can't help you with that, but instead we're going to talk about style.
That you have done?
Well, beyond that, there's now changes in the style. Yeah.
There's a couple. Yeah.
Little things. Just they're cleaning up some of the flow screen components a little bit, bringing them more in line with SLDS. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of consider this, I consider this style, even though I don't think it's style in the sense that they used in release notes. But the syntax is changing in more places. So if I had a get element that I call get account, right? If I saw that reference, it would usually be curly bracket bang get underscore account curly bracket. And now it will show a little icon followed by the words account from and the name of the element, in this case, get account. What I like about this is it makes it a lot more easier to read. And if you still needed to see what the actual variable name was, you can click on it and it will expose that curly bracket exclamation point stuff.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
The next item, I want to do a shout out here to one of my teammates, Michael, for that title that he did. Like that, it's see less complex syntax in Flow Builder, and he actually put the complex syntax in complex syntax.
It was a great example.
So essentially what this is, it's just, when you're actually looking in the in flow and you're putting in lookups, you're putting in variables, you're putting in things like that, instead of having the brackets with the exclamation point, it's now replacing it with more plain text versions
Right, we just
of the
said
text. Yes, but we said it less complex. What else we got, Brian?
This is one of those things where I would say probably the typical admin building flow isn't going to run into that often. It's really things that tend to be going back and forth with Apex.
Yeah.
But that's kind of cool that it's available.
Yeah, and it's just something more collections that couldn't be looped through before that now can. Debugging. A whole bunch of stuff on debugging. Yeah, no, this is great. This is great.
Now, when your flow errors and you get the email,
the big long one, yeah.
The big long one, at the very top is a link. And if you click the link, it will open up the flow version and it will show you in highlights where the flow ran and where it errored out. And then in the side panel, you'll actually see the error message.
Yeah, so it's essentially the same experience as debugging a flow from the flow builder. But when you click the link, it takes you to Flow Builder and takes you to that debug, just as if you had just run it.
Which is so nice.
Yes. Yeah, we're all big fans of this one. There's definitely more coming on this.
There's a lot of things about debugging in this.
Yeah. Oh, debugging. Oh, yeah. There's that. There's also
you can debug a scheduled flow in the canvas.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
Well, there's changes in terms to make it a little bit more
clear. Little things that got tidied up so that they're more consistent. Like some of the debug logs still said like fast create, fast update. They brought those more in line now. So that's
putting in query limits so you can see the query limit debug.
Exactly. It's the SOCL query limits.
Yes.
So that's just going to help with debugging all around the board. We also have new stuff for custom property editors. You can actually custom the invocable actions.
How they look. That's nice.
Yep. Why am I not recognizing these? We're going through these faster than I'm actually able to think about them.
So these are critical updates that have been postponed. So unless the user has already enabled them, things for the critical update for checking null record variables has been postponed out to spring 22. The evaluate the criteria and process builder based on the original record that has been postponed to winter 22.
Yep.
And the accurately measure the CPU time consumption.
Yeah, this one isn't postponed. This is more of a new one, and this is something that you want to be sure that you read through. You want to be sure you're talking about with your teams. What this is doing is it's actually now. So okay, basically, I wrote this one because I did a lot of research on this one, working with the teams, figuring out exactly how to communicate this. The idea is that now, when you're running debug, when you're doing debug not just from the flow builder, but also from the general Salesforce level, those debug logs, it would always say how long the flows took to run. But unfortunately, it wasn't always correct. This was particularly a pain to partners and developers, people who were relying upon being able to see those times. Well, now that's correct with when this update is enabled, and that's great. It also means that because it's now correct, you may actually see certain things fail that weren't failing before, because you're actually now going to see some flows that will run past the CPU time limit. Maybe not just the flow. Maybe it's as part of a transaction that was started by Apex. Apex ran for a while, and then the flow comes in. But because the flow is instantiated, it wouldn't error out. Now, because flow is being counted and it's correct, it's being enforced as well on that end. So this is a little bit complicated, but it's just something to keep in mind that long-running flows may now have some issues because we're actually now able to see this time correctly. Things that are being kicked off of other things are also more likely to. Those are probably your culprits that are more likely to occur. If you already have, let's say, some sort of big Apex process that's going on and then happens to call a flow, it may cause this to kick.
All right, the last thing I think we have for flow is a beta feature, And this is a change to your screen elements, where you can now have multi-columns on your screen. So instead of one column rows them all, you can now add a special thing called a section. And then within the section, you can say how many columns are in there, and then add, your display text or whatever across the columns. You can even specify how wide each column is. And something that I found out when I was playing around with this that I really like was if I start with all the columns equally distributed in width, and I change the width of one of those columns to be longer, it automatically shrunk the other columns, which was nice.
Yeah, that was definitely done to make sure people don't accidentally break the system.
Which I totally would have.
But yeah, and what I really like about this is that, yes, it's great to have the columns, but not only that, you can actually have different column splits on the same screen.
You can have 4 to 3 to none.
On the same screen. So yeah, so 3 columns up on this section, and then the section below that can have 2 columns, whatever you need to have. And it is in beta, but it is continually being worked on. That will become GA at some point. I think that's pretty much our flow stuff. So let's wrap up. Let's wrap up with some profiles, permission, security, and I think we got a little bit of in-app learning.
I think the big thing, and we kind of alluded to this earlier about the changes in standards profiles, but the read-only standard profile
going away
needs to get converted to a custom one because it's no longer available for new Salesforce orgs, and you basically shouldn't use it. You should create your own.
Got too many inherent issues.
Yes. Something new that is
new. Choose that word more carefully.
Something new for Lightning.
There we go.
Which I'm so happy it's there is the manual record sharing. So for those of you who haven't used Classic, you could have a button that says share this record, and like the owner could share it with some other user, which was really nice. It had some very specific use cases for works that just made things so much easier from an admin standpoint. And it's been gone from Lightning for years, but now it's back.
Wait, was it ever in Lightning?
No.
No, exactly. Yeah. So it was never in Lightning.
Salesforce. It's
back in
Lightning.
Salesforce. Yeah.
The sharing button's back in town.
The sharing button's back in town. Can't sing any further. DMCA. Roles, you can now make more roles if you really, really want to.
I don't know why you would want to.
I don't know why you'd
shy into organization.
Yeah, I mean, even in the release note, they're like, yeah, you can, but maybe delete some other roles first.
Up to 5,000. Can you imagine having an org where you have to manage 5,000 roles?
I mean, I can't imagine it because of the size of some of our customers. I can't imagine it. I don't know.
No,
I don't like it.
Imagine you doing it.
No. What else we got?
Well, you can restrict like lookup fields. So
right.
Yeah, so you can actually have someone who has access to a record but doesn't have access to a value in the lookup field of that record. So you wouldn't see like a name.
Like the naming value. Yeah.
Yes.
Or not even access to the field, but also the record itself. Both of those are possibilities, right? Although wait, hang on a second. Can you actually take away the ability to see the naming field? I don't know if you can. I think if you have access to the object, you have access to see the naming field by default. I'm not sure.
You mean literally the field name?
Yeah.
I think you can hide it through FLS.
That's what I'm wondering. Like I think it's hard on.
I don't
on
think
FLS.
it is.
Well, either way, if they don't have access to either the naming field or the object itself, then they will just see a blank.
Yeah.
In those lookup fields, and even things like created by, last modified by, owners, even them, like they'll just see a blank value. It doesn't mean they don't have an owner. It means you just can't see the owner.
Which is kind of funky.
A little bit, but it's better than the alternative.
Oh, and you are right. It is hard on. You can't turn it on. Last, but questionably, whether or not it's least in-app learning /
in-app learning. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I really like in-app guidance. I haven't had time to do anything with it. I really like the idea of it.
Yes, I
and
like the idea.
There's some really good stuff here. Like now you can actually have inline Trailhead in in-app guidance. So you can actually, and I want to say this is beta.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that this is more than just, hey, you can get to Trailhead without leaving your Salesforce window, because looking through this release note, it looks like it's also introducing the ability to assign Trailhead badges to your users to see from Salesforce. So you can actually control your suggestions of their in-app learning. And I know that's something that has existed before in like add-ons, but this is not an add-on. This is not my Trailhead. That's not required here. It's compatible with my Trailhead, which is great, but this is just standard everybody gets. That's pretty interesting.
And, you can now add images to the in-app guidance.
That's
you can have
huge.
users snooze it to see it later.
Yeah.
I mean,
Come back to me in 10 minutes.
I like
with
the
this.
idea of in-apps guidance. I've actually used it, but I think some of the challenges it has from a control standpoint restrict its functionality to a certain degree. Like I tried to use it for launching Lightning for a series of users, and you had very little control over when or who saw those pop-ups to know whether or not they actually got them. And then in-app guidance is kind of split into two different things, right? There's the one that's part of the platform, and then there's the add-on. And I think the add-on gives you the capability to do click-through training. Like click here, and then you click here, and then you click here.
One last thing we have to make sure, this is in release notes, we're going to make sure we say it out loud. You got one release left before Territory Management 1.0 goes away. One. Summer 21, it will shut off. You can't use it anymore. So get out while the getting's good.
Sorry, I have PTSD
from Territory Management 1.0.
Post-territory management, yeah, stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had it at a couple orgs, and I still have...
PTMD, you mean, post-territory management disorder.
Territory management, one word.
It's, 2.0 is the way, the future. It is the way. Please use 2.0.
Insert Mandalorian music in your head because we don't have the rights.
Nope. So I think we're done. I think we've actually covered all the things that need to be covered. Obviously, there's a lot more to release notes than what we just talked about.
And if you disagree with us, and you might,
good for you.
Or you think we missed something that's, core to the platform that we should have talked about, let us know about it. Hit us up on, Twitter.
No, you're probably right. But, we are just publicly wrong because somebody has to be.
Because Wizardcast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross. And our intern this episode was... did anyone remember to feed the interns while we were gone?
I thought you were going to feed the interns. Hang on. Ooh, okay. Well, since we are out of interns that are alive, it looks to me like we need some more. If you'd like to put your life on the fast path to success, just follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter.
Or, actually, no, don't even bother trying to post pictures of us at Salesforce events because I'm confined to my house.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, aren't we all?
Use Twitter.
Have a joke, interview suggestion, or other comments? Let us know. You can call and leave a voice recording at 608-492-0321 or email wizardcast@thewizardnews.com.
And if you have an idea for us for our ongoing series about the Idea Exchange Highlight, tell us about that idea.
Go to bit.ly/idea highlight to submit that idea to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Wizardcast and receive your next episode automatically
whenever that happens. And please post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, or the podcast app of your choice, and share this episode. It helps others to hear what you just had to endure.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I've just received word that, hey, your earlier joke, I can't even, actually was from Animaniacs.
Nope, you can't prove anything.
That does it. Give me back that Brian snack.
What?
Give it back. Give it back.
That needs to cut. Don't keep that in.
That'll go in the bloopers.
No, not even in the bloopers.
Aw,
That is so not nice.
please.
No.
Please.
No. We have
Aw.
children that listen to this.
We do
Yeah.
consider it education in a time of pandemic.